Welcome everyone to our conversation about diversity and inclusion. I'm Pam Kufahl with Club Industry, and I'm here with team members at the Bay Club Company to find out more about their D&I efforts and how those efforts have affected their business and how you can implement some of what they're doing regardless of the size of your company at your business. So with me today is quite an esteemed group from the Bay Club Company, and I'm going to introduce each of them quickly because we have such short time for such an important topic, but there's a lot more to each of these individuals than what I'm going to share. First of all, I'm going to introduce you to Matthew Stevens. He's been CEO of the Bay Club Company since 2008, and prior to that, he served as CEO of Spectrum Clubs. He also worked for Club Sports International and New York Health and Racquet Club. And then we have James D. White, board member at Bay Club Company. James is former president, chairman, and CEO of Jamba and has served on many boards as chair and as an independent director. Then we have Erin Rucker Oto. She's chief people officer at the Bay Club Company, and she's been with them for about 10 years, but has been in the fitness industry since about 1992, working in various roles at other health club brands. And then we have Amber Cook, who's diversity and inclusion director at the company, where she's been for almost 6 years, serving in the HR segment of the business. And prior to that, she was with Spectrum Athletic Clubs. And last but not least, we have Lloyd Cook. He began his career with the Bay Club Company as diversity and inclusion director in July 2020, sharing the role with his wife, Amber. And he has served his community for more than 20 years in youth development through sports, mentorship, and leadership programs. And he has a background in education and played basketball in college and professionally. So welcome, you guys. We really appreciate having you here and being a part of the future of fitness. And I just wanted to share just briefly a little bit about the Bay Club Company. It is an active lifestyle company with resort-inspired properties across 9 West Coast campuses. And they have 4 points of focus, one being fitness, sports, family, and hospitality. So they began their D&I initiatives in June 2020. But before we get into specifics on that and what they're doing, James, I was hoping you could start us off by talking a little bit about, right now, a lot of club companies are so focused in on surviving this COVID situation and the shutdown and reopening, et cetera, and they're not necessarily thinking about D&I. But what would you tell club operators about the importance and how important it is for them right now to be thinking about and implementing a D&I strategy?
And thanks for having us. And I'd make really a couple points. 2020 changed everything. The combination of the pandemic, which this industry really understands the challenges that created for all of us, combined with the racial reckoning. There were 1 million people that marched to support Black Lives Matter. That forced a national conversation like I've not seen in my lifetime around race and racism, and that has forced CEOs, boards, and leaders to really take a stand around being anti-racist. There were hundreds of companies that took that stand and made public statements. The point I'd leave the leaders in this industry with, the combination of our employees and guests, in particular the millennial and Gen Z guests that are clubs and facilities, are going to force us to really be thoughtful about the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Great. And Matthew, do you want to talk a little bit about, the culture at Bay Club and why you guys began implementing this?
Yeah, as we were preparing to chat about this and try to provide some guidance for the industry, we sort of looked at what we did with COVID. COVID is this enormous curveball that none of us ever saw coming, and it's really challenged our entire industry. And our approach to COVID was collectively, we do everything in a collaborative format. We're fortunate to be in the world of tech out on the West Coast, and we're very much about think tanks and collaborative process. And when COVID hit, we reached out to our colleagues, whether or not they were single site operators, regional operators, friends that we have as national operators, and just said, look, we're an open book. Anything you guys want that we're doing, we'll be glad to share. You want to participate in our regional calls that we're doing to try to figure out how to survive, you're welcome to it. You want access to our materials, you're welcome to it. And we've tried to approach diversity and inclusion in the same format, right? We got COVID, and then we got social unrest that had us build a diversity and inclusion program for our company. And as we walk through this, what we're going to do is show you what we've done, but we're coming with an open format, which is anything that we have is fair game for anybody in the industry. Though we'll create at the end of this a reach out format for people. If you want to participate in our group sessions that we do, you want access to our materials, you want to talk to any one of us, we'll be glad to make that available to you, because we're in this for everybody. And hopefully we have a few nuggets we can share. And that's really what the culture of Bay Club is all about.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic, because I think there are a lot of companies out there that want to do something, they just don't know what to do, and to be able to use somebody else's resources to build their initiatives, I think would be so helpful. Erin, I'd like to ask you a little bit about, if somebody is going into this, I'm sure there's some research that they should be doing before they do this. Can you talk a little bit about what sort of research you guys did at the Bay Club company to determine your D&I needs and to inform the program that you eventually put together?
Sure. At the time, this really originated back in June of this past year amidst the social unrest that was happening throughout the nation. And we knew that we wanted to have a voice. We knew that we could positively impact change in our communities. We weren't really sure, to your point, how to go about it. And what was the right way for the Bay Club company. And so, to Matthew's point, collaboration has always been a big part of how we go about doing things. We reached out to our board of directors and asked for advice from them. We reached out to our investors, KKR, and asked them for input as well. Dave Brandon, who is the chairman of our board, gave us some great advice. He was the one that initially suggested to us to dedicate resources to having a director oversee our diversity and inclusion efforts, and to think about forming a task force of individuals that could start us on this process. We knew that we didn't have all the answers, but we knew that we wanted to be part of the solution. So ultimately, we got started by simply stating that our job initially was to listen, to learn, to educate ourselves, and that really was the start of our process. From there, we established our public statement and our go forward strategy in terms of next steps with bringing on a director and forming a task force.
Great. Sounds like you put a lot of thought into it before you actually, launched anything. Matthew, do you want to talk a little bit more about how you did go about launching this and getting your board involved and things like that?
Sure. Yeah, we spent probably 3 full weeks working on our statement of what we listened to what other companies were doing. We tried to learn as much as we possibly could and go to, as Erin said, as many resources as possible. And we eventually came out with a statement, and that launched our process. And the statement basically said, we don't know enough, we need to listen and learn. Number 2 is we're committed to starting a diversity task force. And with that, we're going to hire a head of diversity and inclusion director who will oversee our program. We felt like we needed to improve the strength of our board of directors, and we also needed to improve the strength of our management team with individuals that can bring expertise or heart and soul to the diversity and inclusion process. So the first big step we did was recruit James to join our team. And, we were fortunate that he was in California, living in Pleasanton, California. I think, 5 seconds into a dialogue with James, we were like, this is going to be a fantastic cultural fit. And he's not only brought expertise on the diversity inclusion side of the world for us, he also brings an amazing amount of business acumen. And, we meet with James every first Monday of the month. This team on the screen meets with him and spends time with him talking about our direction. And then every first Friday of the month, we meet with him and pick his brain on how we can be a better company overall as part of it. So we definitely double dip on everything we can to get knowledge from him. So I'd love James to talk a little bit about what's it been like joining our squad and your thoughts of how you've thought about Bay Club in the industry as you've been coaching us through this process.
Really, a couple thoughts. The thing that I love about the team at Bay Club and the culture is really the collaboration that is at the heart of the culture here at Bay Club. One of the first things that got me super excited about joining this team was the commitment from Matthew as our CEO. So one just best practice is this is work that CEOs and leaders of companies have to lead. This is a culture change piece of work, and you can't outsource culture as a leader. So really highest of compliments to the way we've led this work. I think the second point that I'd make is the listening and learning approach that we've taken. I also view as best practice. You've heard that from both Erin and Matthew. This team went deep to really, kind of understand the topic, understand it in the context of our associates in the communities that we do business in. But the team didn't stop there. Extensively understand how this topic is evolving and how it impacts our guests and our company. They formed a task force that has done phenomenal work, and you'll hear from others on the team about that later. And they're holding themselves accountable to make measured progress in both educating the organization, but also having a material impact on our guests in a positive fashion. So I'll pause there and maybe hand off to my colleagues.
Yeah, so the second phase of it was great. We found a fantastic person to join our board of directors, but second phase was who was going to oversee this as a diversity inclusion director. And my thoughts directly, we didn't want to go out and recruit somebody who was a specialist in this area. We wanted to take from within and somebody that understood the heart and soul of our company. I've had the pleasure of being around Amber since 2003. We actually met on the basketball court at the Spectrum clubs, and she definitely was taking me to town. So that was a very humbling process, and I've watched her career grow since that minute. And so I reached out to Amber, and I'll let Amber talk about that journey of the process and what's brought her to being part of this role now.
Yeah, absolutely. I, like Matthew said, I met him on the basketball court. So I started my career with the company as a court monitor. And, I worked my way through, navigated through several different roles with the organization, from childcare to customer service, operations, and human resources. And, beginning July 1 of 2021, alongside my husband, Lloyd, I serve as the diversity and inclusion director. And I have to say, just by far, this has been the most rewarding experience for me as a Bay Club associate. At the time, we announced that we'd be forming the task force, to be an ally for improved justice and equality and inclusion in our clubs and our communities. I only hoped to be able to just support in any capacity that I was allowed. We were in the midst of the pandemic, that disproportionately impacts people who look like me. My community was experiencing so much trauma, and honestly, just the social unrest of the summer of 2020 just really took a toll on me. And I felt, like I really needed to do something. I come from an underserved community, a neighborhood in Los Angeles where, I was able to earn a scholarship playing basketball for the University of California, Berkeley, which, allowed me so many different opportunities. And, I've always wanted to find ways to help kids just like myself. So, I hopped on the opportunity to lead this task force, which, gave me a chance to use my voice in a way that I've never done before. And, I've never been more proud to represent the Bay Club.
The true story, Pam, is that I actually went to Amber to get permission to talk to Lloyd, and Amber was so passionate about it. I called Erin and said, we're going to do 2 versus 1. Break this process up. So, Lloyd, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just want to say, I witnessed every step, and every time I hear Amber share her story of her growth with the company, I'm impressed. And, I was also impressed when I heard that the company had committed to listening, learning, educating, and empowering its communities, and was stepping up to be a voice for diversity and inclusion while our country was so divided. With that, I was born in Los Angeles, and you kind of, talk through my background as far as my years of experience in the community. But being born and raised in Los Angeles, actually born in Los Angeles, raised on the east side of San Jose, and just a Black man in America, I've definitely witnessed and experienced racism, injustices, and inequalities. So those experiences are part of the reason that I'm so passionate about the work, and have dedicated half of my life to mentoring minority youth, sharing skills necessary to function and excel in a society that was not fundamentally designed for them to thrive. So when Matthew approached me with this opportunity to lead an initiative of this magnitude with my best friend, it was a no-brainer. And to this point, it's been nothing short of amazing.
Yeah, not often you get to work with your spouse on such an important topic. So that's fantastic. And thank you guys for sharing your backgrounds and your experience and how you all came together. It sounds like you really got a great team there working on this. I'd love to get into some specifics on your D&I program. So I don't know if Erin wants to start this, or Amber or Lloyd wants to start this, but maybe share a little bit about your D&I program and what it entails and how you decided what to include in those efforts.
Yeah, I'll start and I'll turn it over to Amber and Lloyd. Once we identified that Amber and Lloyd were going to take lead on this initiative, we turned really to the next step, which was identifying the task force. And so we sent out information to our entire associate base, looking for individuals that were interested in being part of this task force. And ultimately, we identified about 40 individuals throughout our organization that represented a variety of different demographics to serve on these regional task forces and ultimately on a larger task force. And it's really the work that Amber and Lloyd have done with the task force that leads us through and ultimately determine what our next steps were going to be in terms of these initiatives. The task force is the one that came up with the idea of doing an education series that we launched in the fall. They launched a survey, our first sort of company-wide D&I survey, so that we could hear from all of our associates. And then we launched a coffee chat series as well. And what I'd say is that even before we got started on all of these, Amber and Lloyd with the task force, their sort of first order of business was identifying a mission statement and sort of determining this is what the work of the task force will be, so that we could align ourselves around, making sure that all of our initiatives were focused on listening, learning, educating, empowering, and really making meaningful impact in our communities. And so once that mission statement was established, we really jumped into those next initiatives. And I want to turn it over to Amber and Lloyd to talk a little bit about the survey and how we went about launching our first survey, and then ultimately the education series. So Lloyd, you want to talk a little bit about the survey?
I'll jump in. As part of our continuous listening strategy, our diversity survey was created as a safe space for all associates, just to share perspectives and their experiences as they relate to diversity and inclusion at the Bay Club. I believe this was, as Erin mentioned, this is our first time, doing a company-wide survey like this. So we weren't really sure what to expect. But after the launch, we're really thrilled with the level of engagement And it just speaks to the culture here at the Bay Club. You know, people really find D&I very important and they want to be involved. So, you know, understanding that importance allowed us to receive the responses from a group of us, a very diverse group of associates representing various age ranges, race, gender, and with 35% of our active associate base participating. This gave us a good snapshot across the entire associate demographic, and also gave us good information, and will, you know, continue to help guide and shape our D&I efforts moving forward for 2021.
Yeah. Thanks, Lloyd. Amber, you want to talk about the education series?
Sure. You know, as mentioned, it was designed to help our associates educate themselves, right? But also to help the Bay Club continue to foster a workplace where, you know, we're uplifting each other and all associates feel valued and respected. And so we've talked a lot about, you know, listening. And so that's where we started with this. We listened to our task force and our associates to understand what they felt was important to have conversation about. So each month we touch on a different topic. We, you know, research and share D&I related content such as articles, videos, and TED Talks. And so far we've covered topics such as inclusion and belonging, unconscious bias, microaggressions, allyship, empathy. Empathy we're just finishing up this month in February, and then coming up in March, we'll be talking about code switching. And so our education series, it also includes a training component, you know, whether it be through an online diversity training or a fun quiz that we put together just to help continue our learning. And associates, you know, we rarely get an opportunity to have honest and open discussion on these types of topics in the workplace. So we've made a safe space for those conversations through what we call our coffee chats. And these chats are hosted either virtually or in person, but socially distanced. And, you know, they're led by our diversity task force members. So in these coffee chats, we review the resources provided, share our takeaways and personal experiences, and we talk about how we can apply what we're learning together in the workplace and in our daily lives. And, you know, all associates are welcome and encouraged to join the conversations.
That's great.
Thanks, Amber.
Your efforts, are they specific to associates, or do you also include your members in these programs too?
Yeah, I would say that's part of our next step. So we have a big annual planning session scheduled for the second week of March that we'll spend a day working on what the next phase looks like. And we had a decision to make whether or not we were going to do members and associates at the same time. We started with associates, and I think you'll see us in 2021 and into 22 embark on engaging with the members as well. The members have definitely put their hands up and are like, we want in, we want to be part of this. We want to do coffee chats. We see what you guys are doing and we want to participate. We wanted to start small, listen, learn, and then figure out how we step from there.
Great, great. Erin, did you have more? I don't know if I stepped on you there or not.
You know, the only other piece that I wanted to add is the communication piece, and the other big initiative that these two really led was ongoing communication with our associates. So each month we send out a monthly publication to all of our associates, and we have included a cultural celebrations page that highlights what's happening in each month, and which, you know, that highlights various cultures that our associates may be celebrating. And then an additional page called Bay Club Roots, which really features individual employees and talks a little bit about their background and both their overall background as well as their background with the Bay Club Company, just in a continued effort to continue the dialogue, keep bringing our teams closer together and gaining more knowledge about the things that make us different and the things that bring us together at the same time.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like you've got some great efforts started there and you've got plans for more in the future. James, I want to turn to you here because, you know, some club operators may be thinking, you know, is there really a business case for this? How does this affect me as a business operator? Can you speak to that? You know, what is the business case for a D&I effort, or is it just a moral, ethical situation?
I'd make a couple comments, Pam. I think I'd start as I think about our industry and the operators in our industry. There is a really significant opportunity for business to be a force for good. Lloyd talked about the divisions that we see. I think there is a clear opportunity with, again, the combination of the pandemic and the racial reckoning for this industry to be one of the leaders. If we think about one of the places where recovery is going to happen, it's going to be around health and well-being. And what better place than this industry for us to take the lead around such an important topic that will be both important to our associates and our membership. So it's both. There is a significant business case, and you're going to have both associates and our members to vote with their wallets and feet. That for me is the truest of business cases. I work across a number of different industries, and the best companies and the best leaders are working as hard as they can to build capacity for this work. And they're looking to build more inclusive leadership and more inclusive environments because they know that'll generate better guest experiences and create at the end of the day an advantage for their companies.
Great. And there is a concern about cost when it comes to something like this, particularly now. So Erin, I don't know if you want to address, is there a monetary cost for doing things like this? Obviously, if you hire somebody to help lead it and et cetera, there's going to be some sort of cost. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. For us, we made the decision to bring Amber and Lloyd onto the team in this role. So there is some costs associated with having a dedicated individual that is overseeing this program. Quite frankly, outside of that, the way that we've structured our task force and the education and series, there's some payroll that's associated with the meetings of the task force. The education series largely takes place in meetings that already are occurring, right? Your leadership meetings, your department head meetings, your department specific meetings, that's just become part of the dialogue and isn't necessarily additional expense. The coffee chats are voluntary. We've always sort of maintained that we want people at the coffee chats that really want to be part of the conversation and be able to have sort of open, honest dialogue. So we really felt like that needed to be a voluntary piece. So for the most part, the way that we've structured it, our costs have been fairly minimal up to this point in terms of the launch of our series and our coffee chats.
Great. As you mentioned, the cost is minimal, but there is a little bit of a cost. And if you're a small club operator, a mid-sized club operator with limited budget, but you want to get involved in something like this, Matthew, can you speak a little bit about any advice you might have for them? How does a company with fewer resources get started? Do they hire a consultant? Do they bring somebody on board? What are some of the first steps that they should look at doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as we started the session today, I think, our thought process on this is, a company we're a very fortunate company. We've got a sizable portfolio on the West Coast. We've had a very successful run. We owe a lot to the industry. And so what we'd ask is just use companies like ours as a resource. We're going to be an open book. We're going to basically make all of our materials available to the industry. So we'll work with Club Industry to make sure that the format and the time and the research that we've done is available complimentary to anybody that wants that through Club Industry and or contacting us directly. We'll also come up with a way to create sort of a Friday availability to give back to the industry. And so we can do Zoom calls for people that are looking to start things up and have a collection of us on there to help give guidance and direction. So you don't have to spend any money, it'll be complimentary. And if you want to attend our education series or be part of our coffee chats, we're going to open the door for that. It's we need to continue to give back to not just our local community, but the club industry is our community. The team at Club Industry Magazine has represented this world for many, many years. I've been in it since the late mid 80s. I don't want to say how many years because everybody will laugh at me, but this is a time to give back and to work together to make this an issue for everybody. So, if we can be part of that solution, our hand is up, and we'll work with the team at Club Industry to figure out how to make these resources available. But it's similar to what we did with COVID-19. We'll do the same thing here and try to be a complementary resource to the industry.
Exactly. Yeah, this is just as important of an issue as the COVID crisis has been for the industry. And this is just like COVID will have lasting impacts. This has already had lasting impacts. And if we can change it, we'll have positive lasting impacts into the future. So thank you, Bay Club, for the Bay Club team for being a part of this Future of Fitness event. And we do have a diversity, equity, and inclusion series that Club Industry is doing. And what we'll do after this virtual event is over is we'll post this video on our landing page for that, so anybody can access this. So if you want to watch this again, you can do that. There'll be a slide that will include some resources for where you can go, as well as some email addresses for who you can reach out to at the Bay Clubs as well. So thank you all, everybody there, Matthew, James, Erin, Amber, and Lloyd, for being with us today and sharing. This has really been an enlightening discussion. I'm sure that a lot of the brands out there watching have learned a lot, and they know that it's a process. You guys are still working through what you're doing, and you'll be doing more in the future. And we're really excited to see where you go with this. And thank you so much for opening your resources to others in the industry. Thank you again, and everyone, please have a wonderful rest of your day.